Can I tell my...
It's so hard to do that without smiling.
Can I tell my joke now?
Of course.
What up, Hope Biscuits? It's your girl, Skitten.
Your neck, okay.
Back at it again. And here...
Wow.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? I didn't mean to do that. I didn't know it was going to swing so much. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
We are here.
All right.
With husband Chavezz, whom I've just mortally wounded with my hair. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Let's do it. I hurt.
I have a joke to tell you.
Now my outsides match my insides.
Are you ready?
Suffering. Yes.
Are you ready for my joke?
Yes.
Okay. Everyone can tell me where the Big Apple is, but nobody can tell me where the mini apple is.
Nobody can tell her that. And she laughs herself to sleep. Good thing you're here. Getting a laugh casually explained how to make something funny. I'm glad you decided to show up to this. You need this. So let's do it.
What are you talking about? I'm hilarious.
Play.
Anything that makes
Jesus
you laugh. That
Christ.
itself can come in many forms and genres, ranging from stand-up to talk shows to films, all the way to inside jokes you have with your friends.
Rachel.
With all these different mediums where we consume comedy, very few people have ever tried to create something funny themselves, and if you ever do, you realize it's very, very hard.
Awful.
None of your ideas are original, none of your sentences are interesting, and whenever you think you have at least something funny, when you say it out loud, you get flashbacks to Hamlet in high school English.
My dude, it is extremely hard to come up with a thought that is funny, that you think is funny, that others also think is funny.
Look, I was just gonna say real quick, when I was writing my wedding vows, I had so many jokes in there, and I was just like, nobody knows what I'm talking about. What is this?
Yeah.
What is this bullshit?
Yep.
It was awful.
Then depression takes over.
Yep.
Brouhaha.
English. Even if you wake up in the morning and decide you're going to become funny by learning the rules of comedy, that ends up being about as useful as deciding to become good at math by remembering the numbers.
Yep.
In reality, the way that funny people make something funny is not by filtering content through an elaborate rule set and having jokes come out the other end, but by starting with one tiny idea, even just a word, and building on it. They take one boring sentence and turn it into one interesting sentence, then into a funny sentence, then into a punchline, then they add a setup to get there, then they do it again and again, continually regrouping and rehashing material until finally they have something to perform or a show to release. But if you're sitting there with a blank Word document or empty thoughts, wondering how you're going to write anything creative, how do you even come up with even an original boring sentence, let alone an interesting one or a real joke? And that brings us to the first goal of comedy writing, which is going from literally nothing to something, anything that's funny.
You okay?
Yeah.
I thought you were trying to be funny.
Oh, no.
By sitting weird.
I'm just stretching.
Okay.
And that means starting with the simplest possible form of joke, which is a setup to establish a premise and a punchline that breaks the audience's expectations. So let's take the easiest type of setup that you get every day, which are questions.
I'm laughing about all the fucking stupid jokes I make on a daily basis and like how long my setups are. Sometimes as I wait for people to respond or for things to happen, I'll be like, I'm about to fuck this shit up though. Keep a straight face. You got it, champ.
I did a pretty long setup today in the video I shot with Zealous. It was good.
Yeah, it feels fucking good. You know me, I love the long setup. I just have to wait. Ask a fucking question and just let that shit simmer. Then say a dumb thing afterwards. It's great.
So here's a question.
Good luck.
What's the most complex thing you do in your kitchen?
That's a great question.
So now the problem here is not only do you have to break the audience's expectations, you have to do it in a way that still fulfills the initial premise the setup has established, otherwise the joke isn't funny.
And that's what a lot of people do is they'll just say something random and they think randomness equals funny. Or they say something you can tell they're just lying, right? And those are the two major things you hear people do.
And this creates a comedic dilemma. Out of the infinite number of things you could respond with, some are funnier than others, so how do you generate and narrow down the range?
Right.
And the first thing you need to do is establish what are the audience's expectations, and in this case it's very obvious. It's something you would physically do in a kitchen, but more complex than usual. So let's start generating responses by adding an additional layer each time. What is the most complex thing that you do in your kitchen?
First of all, what would you probably say to this question?
I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah, it's because I'm putting you on the spot, huh?
Yeah.
And that's kind of all I wanted to get to.
I suck at improv.
It's fine. I love improv. I don't even know where to start with this, and that's why you can't be funny. Like, you have to know.
You just say I'm not funny.
I mean, that's why you can't be funny on demand.
Yeah.
Right? You need a long time to end up being funny. But I mean, you have to know where to start. You know, you have to know what kind of comedy you go for. What is your go-to kind of stuff? You know what I mean? But listen to it.
Make a big cake. This is literally the most complex thing you've done in a kitchen, and it's not funny. Build a giant rocket ship. This might be the most complex thing you can think of done in a kitchen.
Right.
Again, not funny. What is the most complex thing that you do in your kitchen? Make microwave noodles. This breaks the audience's expectation of complex. It's not that funny, but it is interesting. Argue with my wife. This breaks the audience's expectation of what is usually done in a kitchen. It's not that funny, but it's interesting. What is the most complex thing that you do in your kitchen? Sometimes I ask myself if a half carton of eggs is considered a meal. This breaks the audience's expectations that what you were doing was physical and their expectation of complex, and it's sort of funny.
It's fucking hilarious.
Well, see, my thing is, I was stuck on the literal interpretation, and I was like, I don't do anything complex in the kitchen because I don't fucking cook.
But that's what I'm saying, is that this is the whole point of this video, is that comedy is not accidental. You're not a comedian if you are accidentally hitting a joke, and that's why you can put these people on game shows and know you're going to get good content every time.
Right.
You know, and that's why you run the comedy shows normally from comedians, because they know how to set you up to succeed. We can get to that together, bouncing off those kind of ideas.
I didn't know thinking counted as a thing, because I think a lot in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I think daily in the kitchen.
Yeah, we get there.
Does Nutella count as a meal?
So then what if you broke the expectation of complex, the expectation of physically doing something, and the expectation of what is usually done in a kitchen?
I think kind of sort of cream units.
Have you been a kitchen salesman long, sir?
What's the most complex thing you do in your kitchen?
I think worry about death.
That blank stare.
So after generating a joke, the next step in building something comedic is one of the most important, which is delivery, or how you tell the joke. The reason this is so important is because no matter how well a song is written, if you can't sing, the song is going to be complete garbage.
Sucks.
And this is a lot harder than you think, because for good delivery, you also need a good setup. Here's an example of a bad setup and bad delivery, which comes quite naturally. I have a problem right now. I have too much pickle juice left over at home. So what I've been doing is putting the extra pickle juice on my sandwiches to make them taste better. So this joke is actually technically structured correctly. You establish a premise, you state your position on it, which sets an expectation, and then you break the expectation in a way that still satisfies the premise. Setup, punchline.
Oh,
it's technically a joke.
Technically.
The issue is that it doesn't flow at all. It sounds like I'm reading the joke. The language is super boring. The audience is confused because after the second sentence, everyone is wondering why you have too much pickle juice, not what you're
What the fuck is happening?
going to do with it. So you have to close that loop before moving on to the punchline. In
case you were wondering, a great use for extra pickle juice is dipping your popcorn in it. You're welcome.
essence, it doesn't sound right and it doesn't make sense. Here's a better version.
What?
Do you have something to say?
No, I would like to continue this because it's a handle burst joke. You don't know that, but this is what I'm waiting for.
I have a situation in my apartment right now. I have a surplus of pickle juice in my apartment. Too much pickle juice. After the pickles are gone, I don't like throwing out the pickle juice. It just feels wasteful. So lately I've been dipping my fingers in the pickle juice and I flick it on my sandwiches for flavor like that.
It is the kind of obscure setup that I fucking love. You just create a situation that has never existed in the history of life, but it is so true sounding. You're just like, you fucking do this, don't you, you freak?
Right.
So a key takeaway that all comedians employ is always committing to the joke.
Yeah.
If you start mumbling or lose confidence in your delivery, the audience always senses it and you lose it.
Yeah.
You see that a lot when someone is telling a joke or story in conversation because they're trying to gauge their audience's reaction to see if they're still listening, which is a mistake.
Yeah.
You have to always tell the joke with the assumption everyone is going to listen because that's what makes people want to listen. If people still ignore you or interrupt, you have to rethink the material, not deliver the joke more timidly, hoping for encouragement. Here's a segment of one of Louis C.K.'s bits where the delivery is the crux of the joke. The most important part being his use of complete silence that most people would be scared to use out of fear they'd get interrupted.
Right. I believe he believes that shit. Just like, dude, like, you hear what I'm saying, though. I can't say this, but you hear what I'm saying, though.
Right.
So many people, I love when so many people steal a joke. I've seen so many people steal jokes on the internet, but they don't steal the delivery or and you'd be like, that shit's not yours. Like, you didn't think of that shit.
Right.
You uninvented motherfucker. You don't fucking think of shit. I love that. I love that.
The jokes that I think of are all puns.
Right, well, and that's fine because same thing with Casually Explained. He knows, you have to know yourself. You have to get punchlines that match your comedy. You can't do somebody else's comedy. Very your mom type answers, this dick type responses that are creative and witty and match, you know, like your energy.
Yeah.
So once you find your voice, just fucking drill it to the end of time. You don't have to change your shit.
You know the damage you can inflict for a misplaced nut. So one more example of a good delivery is comedian Norm Macdonald, who often has jokes that fall in the category of so bad they're good. Yeah. But he delivers them with so much confidence you know it's absolutely calculated. Here's an example.
There's this 2-hour season finale of Melrose Place. There's this movie coming out.
Yes.
Title undetermined at this point.
Chairman of the board.
Oh, all right. Do something with that, you freak.
I bet the board is spelled B-O-R-E-D.
This nigga is funny, bro.
He was ready.
So once you have a setup and a punchline and you can deliver it well and get a laugh, you have to be able to revise the joke. One of the most important techniques that you can use to improve your comedic writing and speech is increasing your specificity. For example, saying, "There I was in my car, hoping it was powerful enough to make it up the hill," isn't nearly as funny as, "There I was in my 4-door Fiesta, hoping the gradient wouldn't crack 15 degrees. Or saying, "That's the saddest thing I've ever seen," is not nearly as funny as "Sadder than a club-thumbed girl who loves pistachios." A little bit niche there, but you get the idea. For another example, if someone asks if I love football, I could say, "Yeah, one of the higher-ups in the NFL could kick a kid with his shoes on and I'd still watch the game on the weekend." Which isn't very funny, it's actually kind of mean. But when you're a lot more specific...
What they would have to do to get me to stop watching.
You know, like, you love football. You watch football.
The commissioner could literally punt a baby across his office with his wingtips on. I'm still going to watch on Sunday.
And what you might notice there is the language Bill Burr uses is actually far more brutal than what I used, but it's somehow way funnier. And what you'll find is that in refining a joke and adding specificity to make the punchline hit harder, you run the risk of offending the audience.
Of course you do. And do it. That's why comedians constantly tell you, like, just offend people. Start there, and then if you need to have a reflection moment with yourself, when you read your joke in a year, you'll see it. Holy shit, I'm just an asshole, right?
Yeah.
And then you'll progress with that. But
as an example, if you replace the word punt with kill in the previous example, it is absolutely not funny at all.
Right.
Even though you would literally accomplish the same thing. Which brings us to one of the most useful rules of thumb in comedy, which is no subject is off limits as long as your joke is funnier than it is offensive and Pepsi doesn't pay your bills. The theme being you can't laugh and be offended at the same time. So in addition to specificity, the next element that is essential to good delivery is the cadence of the joke. This is an area where literary skills are actually useful because to me, cadence is just as much about how you write the words as it is about how you say the words. And there's really no way of teaching this because what you're aiming for is the precision of writing with the fluency of speech. And this is why most stand-up comedians improvise their setups and have their punchlines memorized to the word. Ultimately, you just have to practice a lot, read a lot, listen a lot, and you get better because it's fun fundamentally a matter of taste. The same way an experienced decorator sees colors and shapes go together, you're trying to do the same thing with words. One of my favorite exercises is taking common feelings that are difficult to express and then shortening them down to be brief and punchy, which is what a lot of the wordier British comedians do. An example is, instead of saying feeling sad in hindsight, you could use debilitating retrospection. Instead of not bad, you can use repressing melancholy. These are the techniques that got us internet cliches for always sad, like crippling depression and constant despair, which are now all common parlance in the British and Canadian.
And also, Thousand Island dressing.
Word.
Lifestyle. So I think with that, anyone could get started building something funny. It might only be enough to write one line that's worth a laugh, but that's where you start. Literally, that's where you start. One day you'll find yourself with 4 or 5, and then you can use the same techniques to tie them together into something bigger. Eventually, you might get to the point where you need to learn further skills to realize a bigger goal, like how comedians such as Bo Burnham went from singing funny songs on YouTube to an entire hour-long musical performance, and then to directing his own movie. Or how The Simpsons started as shorts that weren't even that funny, and then went on to be the most celebrated cartoon ever made.
I mean, you're never going to get there, so don't bother. But everything else we support for you to, you're not gonna write the next Simpsons, you fucking lowly Simpsons.
Are we crushing dreams?
You're barely watching this! You can't even finish this! How are you gonna fucking do anything?
I always feel bad because I feel like I'm unintentionally funny like a lot of the time. And then I feel like people expect me to be that funny all the time. And I'm just like, I'm generally a pretty quiet person.
Okay, but it's not that. It is just, you know, we'll talk about it off camera, but you're not speaking on accident.
So I guess what I was saying is, like, people think expect me to be joking all the time.
Oh, well,
you know what I'm saying? Like, people, and I'm just like, no, like, I literally want to punch this person in the face. And they're like, oh, you're so funny. I'm like, no, you don't understand.
Bitch, what a joke at.
Like, I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I hate them with a fiery passion to the depths of my soul.
Fuck them. We'll see you.